Hi, my name is Elaine Neukirch, and I'm really excited to be here as a new speaker for GRIMMCon 6. GRIMMCon is one of my favorite virtual conferences. I've been watching them since they started. I'm here to talk about fun with MITRE ATT&CK Navigator and Nist SP 800-53. If any of you have experience with Nist, you likely don't equate it with the word fun. I'm hoping that some of the tools I'm going to show you will, if not make Nist a little more fun, at least make it more efficient and easier to do your risk assessments. I currently lead the customer support program at an amazing startup company known as Scythe. We've built an adversary emulation platform, and we also offer Purple Team consulting. Prior to working at Scythe, I was a blue teamer. I worked last as a network security engineer in the healthcare sector, and before that as a network administrator in finance. I did originally start out as entry-level PC tech and worked my way up into cybersecurity after a few years of working as a tech. Before that, I was a hotel manager, but I quickly learned that I preferred computers over people. I volunteer for cybersecurity nonprofit. I'm an education lead there. My job with CSNP is to procure cybersecurity blogs from people. I also write them myself, and then I publish them. If anyone's interested in writing a cybersecurity focused blog, reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter and we can talk about it. I do need new bloggers for 2022. I'm a mom of 3 awesome young women and a bearded dragon named Taco. As you can see from my picture, he's pretty clingy. He's my co-worker. He shares an office with me, but he has no problem in invading my personal space. He is pretty quiet, so I'm cool with that, except for when he decides he's going to take a nap on my keyboard or his worms get loose on my desk. Today, I'm going to talk about how I came across ATT&CK Navigator and the Nist mappings. I'm also going to talk about MITRE ATT&CK Navigator, and Nist SP 800-53 and what they are. And lastly, I'll talk a little bit about how defenders or the blue teamers can use these tools to their advantage. I'm hoping this won't be another boring slideshow. I'm going to try really hard not to read off the slides, although I probably will read some word for word. I do have a live demo planned. I did make my sacrifice to the demo gods earlier today. I left them some Twinkies on the table with a glass of milk. So hopefully they will see me in their favor and not burn down my demo. When I started working at Scythe back in March, I was tasked with learning how to use the adversary emulation platform because I needed to be able to support our customers. So as I was creating campaigns and utilizing the features, I noticed in the reporting there were Nist 800-53 summaries available to be used with ATT&CK Navigator in JSON form. I didn't really know what a JSON file was. I had heard of them, but never used them. And I had also heard of ATT&CK Navigator, but didn't have a lot of information on that. So I got on Google and did some research and reading. And then I tested out the site summaries in ATT&CK Navigator. As I was using ATT&CK Navigator with the summaries and customizing them and trying out all of the features, I had started wishing that I had known about this previously when I worked in healthcare as a network security engineer. It would have made my life a lot easier to have that tool and all that information at my fingertips. So I thought it was so cool, and I thought that it would be great if I could share this with other people who maybe didn't know about it either. And I wrote a 2-part blog for cybersecurity nonprofit. I also wrote more of a site-centered blog for Scythe for our customers. MITRE ATT&CK is a free and open source collaboration. Red and blue teams globally collect information and submit it to MITRE. This is a knowledge base that contains adversary groups, their tactics and techniques and software that they're known to use, as well as mitigations that are known to work with those techniques. The MITRE attack framework focuses on enterprise, mobile device, and industrial control systems, or ICS. You can see on the MITRE attack homepage, there's already a lot of information right here on the first page. You can click on these links and the different techniques to get more information about those. There's also headers here at the top, so you can drill down into whatever information you're looking for. Let's say we want to look at a group, a particular group that we've been reading about that maybe is targeting us, let's say APT 41. So on the APT 41 group page, there's a little blurb about the group. It also notes associated groups when the page was created and when it was last updated. You have a section here for associated groups and their descriptions. So this will take you to the Wicked Panda page. You have the techniques that are used by the groups. So you have the domain they might target, the MITRE attack ID number. For all techniques starts with a T. These are sub-technique numbers. And then the MITRE attack technique name and how the group uses it. As you scroll further down, there will be a list of software the group's known to use. These ID numbers start with an S. Also, the group ID numbers start with a G. There is reference information, and then all of the different techniques that are used with that software are also here. Then further down at the bottom of the page are references and links for more information if you want to really dig in and learn more about that group. MITRE also offers free training. This is a great training class. It's a hands-on and self-paced class. It does get you using MITRE, so you can get more familiar on how to navigate it and how to use it. And if you're just starting out learning about MITRE, I would suggest that you do check it out. I know that many InfoSec professionals already utilize MITRE on a weekly or daily basis. But even for you, if you do use MITRE a lot, it might not be a bad refresher. My co-unicorn, Natalie Kano, wrote a blog for the site Unicorn Library titled Simplifying the MITRE Attack Framework. In this blog, she breaks down all of the components that make up the MITRE Attack Framework and explains what each of them are and how they work together. She did a fantastic job with this blog. If you're starting out learning about MITRE, this is a resource that you really should check out and read. The link is here to get the blog from the Unicorn Library. It's free for everyone. We also won't ask for your information to read the blog. You can just read it. In her blog, she noted the more moves we can predict, the more chances we have to win. Natalie's also from the blue team side. And as far as her statement goes, she's right. The more you know about your adversary and how they're going to try to attack and infiltrate you, the better chance you have of creating your defenses and keeping them out. The blue team can use MITRE attack to gather cyber threat intelligence, or CTI. They can research groups that are likely to attack their sector. For example, when I worked at healthcare, I would go to MITRE to research groups that were known to target healthcare with ransomware. And then the MITRE attack matrices offer a well-organized, easy to visualize site full of information. Attack Navigator was created by MITRE Attack. This is a GitHub project. It's available as a website, but you can also download the components and set it up in your own lab or in your network if you wanted to. This is just another option given by MITRE to manipulate MITRE attack matrices and the components within the Attack Navigator to create your layers for visualization. It's highly customizable. You're able to create your own layers. There's also layers available online that were created by other people. This screenshot is of a layer that was created by Matt Graber. to help blue teams with application security. It's titled Windows Application Control Mitigation Coverage. This particular layer focuses on Enterprise and MITRE ATT&CK version 9, and it's drilled down to just Windows devices. The legend shows that the red techniques have no mitigations tied to them, where the darker green techniques have the most security controls and mitigations tied to them. And this is what the actual layer looks like. And then you would be able to come in here and customize this layer the way you want it. If you wanted to try it out, just try it out to get used to using ATT&CK Navigator, or it's possible that this is something you've been looking for and can use it for a resource. Nist Special Publication 800-53, Security and Privacy Controls for Information Systems and Organizations. That's a mouthful. If you can say all of that without stumbling or reading it off the screen like I'm doing, I will buy you lunch. This document was created as a guide for federal and critical infrastructure information systems. Originally, it was just meant to be used on the federal level. As time went by and more information security people became aware of it, they started using it in different sectors for risk assessments and to ensure that they had defense in depth. Each family or category of security controls contains multiple controls within it, and it's a really long, large document. If you go to the Nist page, revision 5 is the most recent version of this. The Nist page itself has a lot of information. There's also templates and spreadsheets and other resources available here. If you don't know a lot about Nist, or you're just learning, this is another great resource. You're able to download the PDF file, or you can just read it online. It is nearly 500 pages of dry reading. If you've never been to the desert without water, read this document and you'll understand how that feels. It is very dry and detailed, but there's so much useful information in this that everybody should at least check it out. The Center for Threat Informed Defense released a set of mappings between MITRE ATT&CK and Nist in December of 2020. The goal of this project was to enable the blue teamers to have a tool that would make it easier to map the threats and techniques to the Nist controls and make it more efficient for them to do their risk assessments and close their security gaps. This was quite an undertaking, and I'm sure it took some time to go through all of the MITRE ATT&CK techniques and map those to the security controls. It's definitely not something I would want to undertake, but I think it's a fantastic project, and I'm really happy that the Center for Threat Informed Defense decided to do it. The Attack Control Framework Mappings is the Center for Threat Informed Defense's GitHub page. And this page contains all of the mappings from MITRE to Nist. The README file has multiple folders and files within it, and there's a lot of information. So my first suggestion is to read through everything, which will help give you a better understanding of how it's going to work. This is what the GitHub page looks like. As you can see, there's multiple folders here. This is the frameworks folder, which is where all of the layers are housed. And then down here, there's different repository contents pages. We're going to focus on the use cases. There's several use cases here that can be used by blue teamers. It's possible that the blue team already has a scenario similar to this, or they're trying to just come up with scenarios and need a little bit of a push. We're going to focus on scenario number 4. We are going to look to determine what security controls can be used to mitigate techniques used by a specific group. There's also an option in the README to download a spreadsheet of the Nist to MITRE mappings in an Excel format. This spreadsheet's another great resource. It has all of the security controls and which are mapped to which techniques. It is a lot of information, but I think it's really great for a quick reference. You'll see there's a control ID here for the Nist security control, the security control name, the mapping type, the MITRE attack technique ID, and then the MITRE attack technique name. Let's say that you're looking at a layer and you see that there's a specific technique that maps to AC-16. Unless you have all of these Nist control IDs and control names memorized, you're not going to know what that is. If you do have these all memorized, you deserve a medal, or at least a trophy. So you could look up the AC-16 on here and see that it is the security and privacy attributes control. So as I said before, for my demo, I'm going to use case number 4, and we are going to determine which of the Nist 800-53 security controls will mitigate the techniques used by a specific group. The first step is going to be to open the layer. So we're going to go, well, I actually have already downloaded the layer, but if I hadn't, we would go to the frameworks folder on the attack mappings GitHub page. And then we would go to attack version 9 and download the Nist 800-53 R5 overview layer. That will download as a JSON file. And then we would open it up in the attack navigator. Each family within the GitHub page does contain multiple overview and mapping layers. There's a lot of them. So you can layer upon layer within Attack Navigator. It would take some practice, I think, but depending on what your scope is, you might find that useful as well. The next step is to customize the layer for the threat group. So once the layer's been open, I'm going to go to the selection controls, and then I am going to select the threat group. I've decided to use Chimera as my threat group because I like the name. Once the threat group's been checked or selected, the techniques that are known to be used by the threat group will change to be outlined in a black border. They're not that easy to see. They're really hard to pick out from just the white non-bordered ones. So I'm going to choose background color to make them easier to see right away. And then after that, I'm going to filter my platform down to just Windows. We'll say that I work in a Windows shop, and right now I'm just concerned with seeing what techniques this group's going to potentially use to come after my Windows devices. So here's an example of how my layer would look. As I said, I'm going to select the threat group Chimera. My background color is going to be purple. Elaine, why would you use purple? I don't know. I work for a purple team company. My hair's purple, and it's also my favorite color, which is why Scythe hired me. And then the platform will be Windows. So the purple techniques, the purple boxes in this example, are all techniques used by Chimera when attacking Windows devices. When you hover over each technique, there's a little pop-up box that shows. It will show you the MITRE attack title, the technique title, the ID number. So this is T1047. The score. The score is the number of possible mitigation controls that would apply to that technique. And then the list of the Nist security controls. is noted below that. So now we're going to give thanks to the demo gods and hope that this goes smoothly. First thing I'm going to do is go to Attack Navigator and open an existing layer and upload from local because I already saved my overview layer. I'm not going to upgrade the layer to Attack version 10 because the Nist mappings haven't been updated yet. So we're going to open an Attack version 9. It does take a little bit to load. Sometimes it loads quicker, sometimes it's slower. I guess it just depends on the amount of use on the site or your connection. So you can see here that it did open the overview layer, and some of the boxes already have a variation of blue in them. Some are just white. The boxes that are white, the techniques here that are just white have no Nist controls tied to them at all. Whereas the blue boxes, the lighter colored blue box has the lower number of Nist controls. This one has a score of 1. It has 1 Nist control tied to it. Where the darker box, the darker techniques have more controls. This one has 24, and then there's 24 Nist controls noted in the comments. First thing I'm going to do is select my threat group. So I'm going to go to the little magnifying glass under selection controls. Then the sidebar will open. You can see here that you have techniques to choose from, threat groups, software, and mitigations. You can mix and match. You don't have to select just one item. Again, it really depends on what your scope and focus are. I'm searching for Chimera because I already know that I'm selecting just a threat group. Now, if you look here on these white boxes, these are probably the easiest ones to see when they become outlined in black. When I select the Chimera, some of these are outlined in black. Again, still not that easy to see. If I hadn't told you about it, you may not have noticed. I didn't notice the first couple times that I used them. So the next step, I'm going to select my background color. Conveniently, they have a purple that matches my hair. Now you can see the techniques used by Chimera much easier. They just pop right out. Next step is to filter down to just the Windows platform. All of the platforms are selected. There's Linux, Mac, Windows, Azure, Office, SAS, Google Workspace, Docker. There's a lot of choices here. Again, for this example, we're just going to drill down to Windows. As I deselect these other options, you'll see that the number of techniques decreases. Now we're looking at techniques used by Chimera that are targeted toward Windows. Sorry, sometimes it is slow, like I said. The ones with the yellow underline do have Nist controls tied to them, or the ones that don't have a yellow underline have no Nist controls. My suggestion would be if there are a lot of techniques showing up that have no Nist controls tied to them, that you investigate these techniques, gather a lot more information on them, maybe what processes are used, what kind of logs are generated, and then tweak your security tools to detect, alert, and even block. Because there's not really any other way to mitigate those right now. You want to make sure you know that these activities are going on in your network. There's also an option here to expand so you can see the sub techniques. And this is more than likely something that you're going to want to do if you're working on a project and really digging in. And then there's other controls as well. There's a way to add comments. You can change scores. You can really customize this to your needs. So one thing I do want to point out is that this is web-based. So make sure you download your layer as a JSON file when you're done tweaking the layer and customizing it. The last thing you want to do is spend a couple hours working on this and then close the web page and lose it all. So be sure you download it before you're done. There's also an option to download as a spreadsheet, as an Excel file. This is kind of cool. It opens as the layer. So this could be another way that you could kind of look up the different controls for each technique. You can mouse over the little red corner here to see the comment. The comment shows the different controls that are mitigated. And then you could go to the Nist to MITRE mapping spreadsheet to look them up. And from there, you could start creating your plan, you know, assuming that maybe you don't have some type of software that could correlate that for you. That's another option. I do want to thank the demo guys for being kind to me and not harassing me this time. I'm sure they'll make up for it next time. So I'm hoping that I've shown you some of the ways that the ATT&CK Navigator and Nist mappings can benefit the blue team. Again, you can, as a blue teamer, you can use the information to review the Nist controls for each technique identified, or even just learn more about what techniques are going to be used by which groups. Again, I did state previously that this can be customized. You can add scores to prioritize the higher risk gaps. Like you could add a score and a comment to a technique that is a really high risk that you don't have a control in place for. And then the techniques that you already have controls in place for, you could add scores or change the color or add notes to that as well. This tool is going to help you to identify security gaps. And when you know what the gaps are, you can also identify what tools you might already have available to mitigate those gaps. We talked about, tweaking your policies in your existing security applications, your SIM or your firewall, to detect, alert, or block on these techniques that may not have any controls tied to them, or obviously that do have controls tied to them, and you can just add that extra layer. And then as you close the security gaps by adding in more security controls, you can go back to your layer and remove those particular techniques or change the color coding or scoring to show that you've made progress in closing gaps. Lastly, this can also show an overlap in security controls. Again, by adding to the visualization, you'll know which techniques have multiple controls in place to protect against it, and that's creating your defense in depth. Organizations can really benefit from using this. To start with, it's free. Who doesn't love free? This is a well-known, and MITRE ATT&CK and Nist are very well known in the information security world and associated with best practices for security. So it's well trusted, it's free, and they're updated often. Another reason an organization or security department might benefit from this is that they can relay technical information to non-technical people. Suppose your CISO has to report to the board, you can create one of these layers and show the board in a visual way where your gaps are or where they aren't. Leaders can also utilize these visualizations to ask for money to justify new projects and requesting more resources or more security applications. I've included the links to my two-part blog series. I'm hoping that you did find this to be an interesting talk and you might want to pursue utilizing the tools. So in the blogs, I do have this step-by-step, like I did for the demo, to help you out. I probably should have mentioned at the beginning that you didn't have to take notes because the blog links are here. If you did take notes, then you've got double documentation and you're good to go. I would like to thank Micah Brown. He was my new speaker mentor. He helped me just improve my talk and gave me a lot of great feedback. I was really nervous about doing this. I had to push myself to submit to talk at GRIMMCon. I want to thank GRIMMCon for accepting me as a new speaker. It's going to help me get on track for talking at more cons. And then I want to thank all of you for listening to my talk. And again, I hope that you walk away with some useful information. I'll be available for questions on Discord. Also, you can hit me up on social media, on LinkedIn or Twitter, and connect with me if you want to hang out with a cool unicorn. I hope you guys are enjoying the conference and have a great rest of the day.